Well, welcome back, everybody. And today we're in Chapter 11, which is dealing with leadership and diversity. And as we enter into Chapter 11, I can tell you that diversity is probably one of the greatest opportunities, but yet probably one of the greatest challenges facing leaders today in organizations. Now, when we think of diversity, you probably are thinking about, or as we historically talked about in the past, race and gender. Those were the two primary concerns when it came to diversity. But now we have a whole plethora, a whole wide array of individuals who fall under the caption or fall under the umbrella of diversity. And what we need to be aware of is that these individuals are protected by law so that we do not treat them any differently than we would anyone else. Now, today, as I said before, we have many challenges. Not just so much with race and gender, but think about all of the diversity out there today. The big thing today is sexual diversity. People who want to identify as other genders, some who don't want to identify as any particular gender. How do you as a leader accommodate these individuals in the workplace? So that's just one element. What about disabilities? In the past, we kind of overlooked or we passed over people with certain types of disabilities. But the law has come in now and said, because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, that we have to make what's called a reasonable accommodation for these individuals, and rightfully so. I'm not criticizing it by any means, but that poses a new challenge. Reasonable accommodation means that if we can do something to give them access to the work that we are performing, then we have to do so. What about other types of diversity? What about religious diversity? You know, in the past, when organizations came upon the holidays, they would have perhaps Christmas parties and so forth. Today, they're called winter celebrations. Because of diversity, we can't just have a Christmas party because then we've offended people of other faiths, Muslim, Jews. So religious diversity is another area that we have to be mindful of. And there's so many others too. And it's growing. It's not something that's going to go away. It's not something that is reducing in its size and volume. As we become more of a melting pot, we're going to have people of different cultures, different values, different faiths, different colors come and work in our organizations. And we've got to do something with it. We can't just have a cookie cutter approach to our leadership styles and how we lead people in the workplace. So these are some of the challenges. But by the same token, look at the opportunities that diversity brings. You know, if you've only got a certain type of person in the workplace, chances are you're not going to get a lot of unique and disparate input on how they see things as they should be run, or offer advice, or offer input. Diversity gives you the ability to take many different approaches to problems. And the problem that we have is just managing it. If we can manage diversity, if we can garner and glean the best from all types of people, then the organization is going to thrive. We've seen that today. And as organizations emerge into what we call learning organizations, then it's even going to be more productive, because learning organizations leverage the input and the abilities of the people. We invest in the people, and the people in return invest in the company. And we see that with companies that have to stay on the forefront of the industries. Technology, for instance, they are learning organizations that are involved in that industry. They have to be. So getting one-sided perspectives, getting a just go along with everybody else type of thing doesn't really work. These organizations thrive on independent, disparate, diverse input and abilities. And that's what we get with diversity. Many leaders in the past have shied away from it. They've been in fear of it. And we're going to take a look here in a minute at the Civil Rights Act of 64 and then amended in 91. And the Civil Rights Act terrified people, not the first one, but the second one. The first Civil Rights Act just says you won't discriminate. Title VII says that you won't discriminate based on age, race, gender, religion, sex, or anything like that. But it didn't have any teeth to it. Now, the amended Civil Rights Act of 91, that changed everything, because the amended Civil Rights Act said if you discriminate against anybody, then they can sue you. We will award them punitive damages. And then the floodgates opened. People were filing lawsuits left and right against organizations for discrimination. So you have to understand that in the past, when leaders didn't understand the nature of diversity and had really only been exposed to a certain demographic, for them to have to accommodate all of the different people that were coming into the workplace, it was kind of harrowing for them. But this is why you have classes like you have today in leadership and HR and organizational behavior. These are the fundamental classes that will teach you the dynamics of people and how to be able to manage them and how they work together. So today, as we go into diversity, take a look at it from the perspective of the old way, which was very stable, and it didn't really encourage input. It didn't really encourage diversity as far as different people coming in and contributing to the organization, as opposed to where we're at now, where organizations not only have to be inclusive, but they're thriving on that. And it'll give you a better appreciation of where we're at now when it comes to diversity. Now, if we consider the definition of diversity, we see that diversity involves the differences among people in terms of age, gender, race, and other dimensions. And it's that last section, other dimensions, that have really revolutionized what we're doing today. And again, these dimensions are growing. Now, you can take a look at age, you can take a look at gender, you can take a look at disabilities, you can take a look at all different types of characterizations of people, the demographics of individuals, and all of that falls under the umbrella of diversity. Now, how is it where you work or where you serve in church? Do you have diversity in your organization? What's it like? Do the people get along? Do they function well? Or how much better would it be if you did have more diversity? Or how much better would it be if you could manage diversity better? These are some of the questions that come up within organizations today. How can we better provide for each and every employee so that each employee feels valued, that they are motivated, that they want to do more for the organization, and see that the organization succeeds? Now, workforce diversity is made up of people with different human qualities or who belong to various cultural groups. So that's just further defining it. You have diversity as a whole, which typifies just the differences among people in general. And then you have workforce diversity, which includes people of diverse characteristics within the workforce specifically. Now, as I said, these models or these types of diversity have grown. Look at the traditional model for diversity. You had age, race, gender, pay, disability, lifestyle. And that's really how we categorized it. And really, only in the past decade or two have we included lifestyle and maybe age. Actually, age has changed. Under the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, you can't discriminate against a person from 40 to 70. They're protected in those ages, so you have to be careful with that when you're dealing with people within that age range. But look at how the new models, the inclusive models of diversity have really changed the landscape. Race, gender, lifestyle, pay level, function, competency, income, parent, language, work style, military experience, position, nationality, personality. Now, not all of these fall under the category of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, but they all represent the different types of diversity that's out there. And folks, listen, look at all of that you can glean from. You have the potential to have just a gold mine of experiences, of things that will enhance the organization, but you have to know how to lead and manage that, because if not, these disparate entities can come into conflict. And as we've seen in the past, when it comes to conflict, negative conflict, that can be not only negative, but it can be destructive. And you don't want that. You want people working together, and you want the people to be able to collaborate, to be able to reach its goals, and to really do what the organization has set out to do. Now, we're going to show a video, and this is going to comprise really the totality or the main part of today's lecture. And it gives you an overview of the Civil Rights Act. And you're going to see some types of terms here that you need to be very familiar with. You need to be familiar with what disparate impact and disparate treatment include. And we're going to talk about that later on in this chapter. But when it comes to diversity and discrimination, most of the discrimination suits that are filed fall under the category of disparate impact or disparate treatment. So it is in your best interest, if you're going to be in leadership, to be able to understand what the law says, who falls under the law, and how you are to interact with people, because once you have the lawsuit, ignorance is no excuse. So we're going to go ahead and watch the video, and then I'll close out. Make sure you're keeping up with your reading. But today we're going to take a look at the Civil Rights Act. We're going to take a look at some of the elements involved in it and what it's all about, and then we'll come back and finish up afterwards.